Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody. It's December 13th. I'm Ryan Miller, and he's cramping up. It's Matt Amber.
I am cramping up. My tum-tum hurts. Because it's cramping. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a movie thing.
Because it's Book Club for Movies, where we watch one movie a week.
On Book Club for Movies.
And then we talk about it in podcast format. You can watch it too. You can Twitter, Facebook, email us, podcast@bookclubformovies.com. And then you're in the conversation.
There it is. Good synopsis on your part.
All right. Okay, great. Speaking of synopsises, you probably have one for this week's movie, which is Krampus. I've found out. It was one of two. It's definitely Krampus, though, let me tell you.
It was definitely Krampus, because I didn't have enough time to watch the other one, and to be perfectly honest, I forgot that it existed. So, we're going to ignore the fact that I'm a bad person on a podcast doing a poor job, and instead talk about one single movie, and that's going to be Krampus, coming in at an hour and 38 minutes, written by Michael Dougherty, Todd Casey, Zach Shields, directed by Michael Dougherty himself, starring Adam Scott, Toni Collette, MJ Anthony, and David Koechner. Here is your poorly put together Book Club for Movies synopsis for Krampus.
Okay.
Christmas is usually a time for family. When young Max is fed up with his cousin's bullying, he wishes Christmas would end and be just like it used to be. But Santa wasn't listening. Somebody else was. There we go. Feel pretty good about it. I don't.
Excellent. Love it. I was concerned early on. I think I mentioned this last week, or not necessarily concerned, didn't know, relied on you for information regarding whether or not there was a show in Krampus.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to report there's a show in Krampus.
Yeah, I think there is. I think it's an interesting one, huh?
I think it was just, you never know, because this thing could have been not a cash-in, but it's such an easy concept, I feel like.
Oh, sure, and it's been done in the past. I mean, there are a number of crappy Krampus movies throughout the years. Oh, sure. You've never heard of them because they're all VOD movies or things that were like made for TV or just garbage, like low budget, crappy movies.
Oh, I'll have to check the date, actually, because when I was looking this up, I did see a number of them, but I thought they all came after this one because this one hit it big or whatever. Or I actually don't know how well this movie did, but you hear about it a lot now because it's kind of one of its kind. But it's not, apparently, is what you're saying. So
no, it's one of its kind because it's actually good and it's not stupid. But yeah, there are movies about the character, the concept of Krampus. Krampi.
So Krampus Origins, you're saying, which came out this year. Okay. Mother Krampus came out 2017. These are all... Okay, wait. Krampus the Christmas Devil came out before this one.
That's the one that matters.
Wait, so that's a bad one? That's a good one?
No, it's definitely bad.
Oh, okay.
The only good one is this one, the 2015 Krampus, written by Michael Dougherty.
Excellent. Okay, so good. We're doing the only good Krampus, everybody.
Yeah, let's move on from bad Krampi and move to the good Krampi.
Fair enough. So this movie begins with a more than competent montage that not only sets the stage, but looks pretty darn good. You know, slow motion, kind of Jingle All the Way, consumerist vibe going on, you know?
Yeah, the crashing through the doors open at midnight, and the whole, throng of people crashing through, trampling the employee.
People getting tased, security guards doing their job.
Ish. But yeah.
So the movie looks good right off the bat. I will give it that. And I'm going to give a lot more stuff. I don't know why I had to start this way.
No, you know what? I love it. You set the expectations low, think it's going down, and then, you bring it back.
Well, to be honest, actually, the fact that Toni Collette is in it, which...
Right?
I've also seen Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage.
Right?
So, we did talk about The Return of Xander Cage, and I did find a lot to appreciate there, Donnie Yen. The fact that Toni Collette was in this thing did give me a large amount of hope that this was more than... And actually, you know what? Everybody in this thing gave me hope. Adam Scott, he's one of the foremost purveyors of things that know what they are type thing, you know? Like, he's very aware of cultural cachet, let's say.
Sure.
You know?
And I think Adam Scott's he's funny because he is such a good straight man with great comedic timing But,
true, actually, yeah.
But he also completely, in so many ways, especially for this movie, he totally pulls off being dad in this movie to me.
Yeah, actually, totally. He's a man that knows where the humor is at, and that probably allows him to do that. You know, that allows him to play around it and play something off of it in a way that, he does pretty darn well in this movie. In fact, I don't have a complaint about any of the performances in this movie, honestly. Right. It's not a one that hinges on performance, let's say, but nobody was so bad that they took me out of it. I mean, David Koechner is playing his quintessential uninvited guest role that he does, you know.
David Koechner is the new Randy Quaid.
Oh, man. Wow. I'm both impressed and now concerned about his future. That is incredibly apt. I hope not.
Well, yeah, I mean, film wise, we don't have to have him, personal wise.
Well, I'll tell you who the standout was though in this thing. The character, actually, yeah, probably the character and performance that I loved the most, and I think added a huge amount. Was the grandma.
She is. I love her. Yeah, absolutely. She is so much the character that Adam Scott, it's his mother, clearly loves, clearly pays attention to, clearly discusses it. They have conversations, but she is taking the spot of the child in most movies where nobody wants to listen to the kid. And she is not.
She's Macaulay Culkin here. Is that what you're saying?
She's not played off as being old or senile or anything like that.
No.
She's played off as being the grandmother who's just that's what she is. She's just there, and she frames the story for us through Max. And I love her. Yeah, she is fantastic.
I think there's more there, actually, though. They do some really smart things with her. They don't have her speak English until she has to explain what the heck's going on. So she is very much from this kind of old country type vibe. But she's the one that has the answers, too. She is a key to this movie. Mm-hmm. She knows actually what's happening. She has history with Krampus. The story being that once we find out, we're going to kind of go at this from several different angles, some of them spoilery.
Sure.
So I feel like we don't give our spoiler warnings enough sometimes on this show. So we're going to spoil this movie. I don't think it can be spoiled. I'll say that. It'll still be fun to watch no matter what.
I don't think it can be spoiled in one sense. I think the way it ends could be kind of like that's something that I wouldn't necessarily want to ever spoil in the direct ending. And
that's something we don't even need to mention until we actually talk about it at the end. So I'll give another spoiler warning later on. How about that?
I bet you forget, but let's see what happens.
Sure. Yep. But the grandma is literally a key to this film in a lot of different ways and holds it together as that. She is the one that once everything does start to break down, she kind of gives the story about how Krampus came to her village when she was little and left her to be the lone witness. So she's playing her part in a bunch of different ways in this thing. But you're right. Max is also an important part because he's the one that plays the part of the grandma when she was a kid. Yeah. In that he's kind of the holdout here. He's the one that still believes in Christmas in a way. He doesn't believe in Santa. He gets that.
Yeah. And he makes that clear early on. He actually makes that clear where he's like, I know.
Yes.
But that's not the point.
And he's still writing a letter to Santa,
Right.
There is some good lines and some playing with the idea of the spirit of Christmas and what Santa Claus really means and stuff like that. That stuff's actually, it's good. It's not, they don't dwell on it. It's just understood and brought across very simply and in a way that benefits the rest of the story. Because what happens with Max is that as more of his family arrives and we see more of his family, Toni Collette's the mom, Adam Scott's the husband, David Koechner is the brother-in-law, and the sister is played by an equally talented actress from...
She's Saturday Night Live.
Fargo is where I know her from.
Wasn't she on Saturday Night Live?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, Allison Tolman.
Tolman, yeah.
I know who she. I know she reminds me of somebody from Saturday Night Live. That's what it was.
At this point, it happens a lot.
And she's very funny.
She's amazing, man. Yeah, and if you haven't seen that, I believe it's the first season of Fargo, and it's not even the first thing she's done. Anyways, she's great. Yes, also in here. She plays the Toni Collette's sister who brings her husband, and Aunt, you've seen her everywhere. Conchata Ferrell. Conchata? Is that right? Never said her name out loud, actually.
I don't think I ever knew her name.
Aunt Dorothy?
Yeah.
You've recognized her, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And she's just a piece of work. Like, she pushes the limits of everything. But the family dynamic is super well done, actually. The characters they're simple. They're archetypes in a way, but whoever wrote these characters is so familiar with the archetype that they were able to play with it in a real life, but also really understandable way. Like the sister and her husband are, in fact, they get political a little bit. They mention it several times, so I'll mention it here too. Very right wing. He's got a bunch of guns in his Hummer type thing.
Sure.
And at some point I forget what the actual line is, but they call into question or, explain away the character of her sister and her family using their politics as well. And it totally fits. They're upper class. They're liberal in a way that they don't understand some things.
Sure.
I wish I could remember the line now because that just sounds bad, but they do a good job of understanding the pitfalls of both sides, and they're not both sidesing everything here, but they are creating a dynamic that comes across very truthfully to me, I guess.
Sure. And let's be clear about the way you're talking about this. This movie was written and came out before a lot of any of the both sides.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It came out before the current administration existed. So,
sure. Okay.
So
that's true. Where both sidesing had a better place, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
a respite of sorts.
But I think that I agree with you. And I think one of the things that makes it work is it feels like whoever was writing this or the three of them putting this together, it feels like this was one of those moments where somebody went, oh yeah, we had this happen at Christmas one year, and and it was something like not that, but it kind of blew up,
No, I mean, it's a caricature in some ways, but it's not so much so that, this is completely based on somebody's dinner table at some point.
This is not Home Alone. This is not that Home Alone introduction. No, it's not. It's a smaller version. I mean, it's not Christmas Story. It's not Christmas Vacation. This is it's Christmas Vacation, but taken in a far more realistic manner. You're still getting the cousin Eddie that comes in, but he's not cousin Eddie where he's not emptying the RV into the sewer. Right,
yeah. Which is important, I think, for this film, because we all know it's going to become a horror film basically, and after hearing you say that, I'm tempted to say it goes all the way, but it doesn't necessarily. It's still PG-13, so it's not.
It goes a little bit harder than Gremlins, but not by much for me.
No, it's not R-rated. Like, there's blood, but not necessarily a lot of death. And I guess depending on how you read the ending, which we will get to, let's treat it how it treats itself during the course of the movie.
Yeah.
In that it plays for keeps. Like, the daughter, in fact, leaves to go check on her. They come, they visit, they blow up at dinner, and the Max takes his letter that he wrote to Santa and basically gives up on Christmas, rips it, throws it out the window, and it floats up to the moon, much like the grandmother's wishes did back in the day. So he is in a way responsible for what happens next, being that the power all goes out across the block, so everything gets dark, a blizzard comes in. So at one point, the daughter is like, I'm going to go check on my boyfriend down the block. I can't get a hold of him. The phones are down, all this stuff. And they're like, okay, go check him out. So she goes to check him out and is taken by a jack-in-the-box that we don't see until later. But basically, it's playing for keeps, we think, at this point.
Yeah.
Even though it does play with that, like any good horror movie, like, did she die? Will she come back? How did she die? Will we see her again? We don't, see her torn limb from limb or anything. We don't see anybody torn limb from limb.
This is actually a really good, the daughter is actually a really great example of this kind of thing done correctly, because not only does she kind of kickstart and frame the next section of the movie, which leads to, the introduction of Krampus and all of the things Krampus brings with him. But she does so she's the reason for the season at that point. But it gives
kicks it off.
But it gives us that kind of I guess, hope that we're going to go, okay, she was taken, but they're going to get her out of this. There's going to be a twist, like they're going to figure this out. It's not going to, Krampus ain't going to win this, you know?
Right. Well, because shortly thereafter, when she doesn't return that night, both of the dads, Adam Scott and David Koechner, go out to look for her. And before we actually get there, I'm glad that you mentioned, I think you said section. If you didn't, I'll say
yes.
There are absolutely 2 sections to this movie. And in a way, it's the difference between a great movie and a good movie. This is a good movie. I don't know if I say it's a great movie.
Sure.
And I think the dividing line between those 2 sections is that there is a bunch of animosity between the 2 families, politically, and I don't just mean, like government politics, just politically and personality wise and just everything, right? 2 very different walks of life. But they butt heads and hate each other and come together. Like that's all solved halfway through the movie. Yeah. It's not woven into the horror aspect. So about halfway through the movie, they get rid of all that dynamism, that all those dynamics that we just mentioned that were so well played off of each other and understood, and kind of just make way for the rest of the movie, which is kind of a more traditional Krampus traditional horror movie about Krampus or whatever. It's traditional Krampus at this time.
Well, I guess the only thing I'd have to say about that is I don't know where that dynamic continues in this movie, because it's no longer about that family having the feeling, like being able to concentrate on each other. Now they're focused purely on, there's a demon thing, I can't do anything about it.
I'm glad I have the perfect example for you.
Hit me.
And we've talked about this before. Shaun of the Dead.
I love it.
Shaun of the Dead deals with a group of people that have baggage. There's the unrequited love. He loves the girl. He loves his friend's girlfriend type thing. And that is not solved halfway through. That is woven into the zombie apocalypse in a way. And this is the scene I mentioned specifically before. That guy gets torn apart limb for limb, like as he's literally torn apart at the same time that he's torn apart by his feelings type thing, like that's what makes that movie a great movie, apart from it being one of the best comedies of all time.
You know what? All right, fair enough.
So I can't tell you where they fit it in, but if they weave it in to the point where, like encounters with Krampus are coming off in a way that is both addressing their underlying hatred for each other or their, political differences, stuff like that, that's where it becomes a great movie. Yeah, and great movies are hard to make for everybody in the entire world, even great movie makers. So,
all right,
I'm not really giving them a solution or anything, but
no, but I get what you're saying. That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. I can agree with that.
Either way, the last half, and I think we can get to the last half of the movie, is still a ton of fun, both from creature design, and I want to say there's a lot of practical in here. Am I wrong? You would know. Okay.
Almost all of it's practical.
Really? Okay, cool.
Yeah, they made. I mean, Krampus himself was mostly CGI, I think. But
I don't know, man. That face, the amount that the face didn't move, made me think it was more practical.
They did use a ton of practical effects though, like all the little goblin guys, and they created the masks and stuff for the creatures that followed them around, and then for sure the Jack in the Box was definitely practical. Yeah. That was you could see that. Yeah.
That was the one I thought maybe was CG, but okay.
No. That was from my memory, that was a practical effect, and it was because it was just, they literally just made a giant Jack in the Box and put a tube on it, and then the head thing was just controlled by animatronics.
That's awesome. Yeah, it looks good. All the creature design looks super cool. Looks super fun.
Yeah, they're fun. Like that's the thing is the creatures that they use throughout the movie. So Krampus is the looming, Krampus is there, but he has his own little version of his elves, his helpers. Mm-hmm. And they're gingerbread men that are crazy psychotic. There's the Jack in the Box. There are these kind of elven guys.
If I could describe, you're going to say Jack in the Box. If I could describe that, it's basically like a Jack in the Box python. That has huge. Like the porcelain Jack in the Box head whose mouth opens like
the Predator.
It's got the 4-point mouth,
Yeah.
That he eats people with, and then they digest in his tube. You get the feeling there's a couple bodies in that tube. Oh, we see him eating when we come up on him the first time, we see him finishing eating a child.
One of the cousins.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I just had to describe the Jack in the Box a little bit
No,
more.
no. I love the creature design for the movie. They did a fantastic job coming up with really good, the gingerbread men are maybe a little the thing that's a little derivative, I guess. You could kind of people always do that with the gingerbread men, the killer gingerbread men, and then of course you've got the people like doing it with the Shrek gingerbread man too.
Right. Were there any? Am I missing some after the Jack in the Box?
Yeah, there were the elves. He had like his own little weird elves,
right.
and then he had the with the masks, and he had there was the robot thing that attacks Adam
right.
Scott, which, by the way, I didn't realize this until the end of the movie. But at the end of the movie, they're panning through the house and everything. That thing that attacks him is like it's in Max's room as a poster.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it was one of those weird. I was like, oh, that's the thing.
I did catch Gypsy Danger on his desk.
Gypsy Danger
have the same Pacific Rim toy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think the creature design is real fun, and it is, like I said, I think this is a step up from Gremlins, but not by a whole lot, and I think the creature design is part of that. It's a little more harsh than the Gremlins are.
Yeah,
but I
it's
still
darker.
But I totally think that if your kid can watch Gremlins, I personally think this is totally viable for them.
Yeah, I'm not quite there with you, but depending on the age of your kid. If he's 18, yeah, definitely.
Look, I'm showing this to my 9-10-year-old. Okay, that's where I'm at with it.
I did look. In fact, I want to say I looked and I said no on the grounds of language alone. So I didn't even get to the creature design. Actually, you know what? My daughter would do fine with the creatures in this movie. You're actually right. Yeah. It's just a little more violent than I've probably ever shown her before.
Well, you got to get her started somewhere.
Yeah. What are you going to do, right?
Yeah, it's better she learns it from Krampus than Charlie's Angels.
What?
I don't know.
Good pull.
Yeah.
I like it. So we're largely dealing with a cat and mouse situation here with the last half. They are chasing what they believe to be a threat. And I will say with the halfway point in the movie where they do kind of forgive each other and that all the family dynamics are done with, they also accept, like they board up the house at that point too, which is almost a leap. They've gone out and something's kind of grabbed David Koechner. They don't know what it was, but they wouldn't have thought it was Krampus, and we haven't got the exposition from the grandma yet. So I'll say they do turn a little bit quick on boarding up the house and stuff like that, but I think that's probably a nitty-gritty that's not worth talking about.
Too bad you just did.
But it is largely a cat and mouse game after that. It's them looking for what's trying to kill them until the grandma finally tells them what happened. And actually, that's probably a good moment to mention because that's all done in a really cool, probably stop motion. I guess it could be CGI, but it looks like legitimate stop motion, actually.
Love the animation, that little animated bit. And that's the animation and that's the part we did mention earlier where the grandma, she explains what happened to her and she did the same thing. She had a problem and she wrote a letter and then she ripped it up essentially and threw it out, and Krampus came and killed all of her family and left her to be the sole survivor, to be the sole witness, and left her to be an orphan.
Correct. And honestly, I don't know that I have much beyond that besides what this movie reminded me the most of.
It's a Wonderful Life.
And the ending. Well, it's probably been too long since I've seen A Wonderful Life, so no. But no, yeah, I don't think I have much more other. Were there any moments that you wanted to mention in the movie?
Yeah, no, I think that second half, I think the first half is really cool. It does a great build up, and then the second half just kind of lets everything loose, and you get some really, really fun set pieces, and as the after Grandma breaks her only German speaking rule, right. she explains to Krampus in English. You get that kind of final bit of the third act where where it's all happening. This is you said it plays for keeps. This is where it all goes, where one by one
it goes downhill quick. It's probably what you're
yeah, for real. One by one at that point, they all kind of get picked off to a point where until it's we got to run, we got to leave, we got to get out, and Grandma does the face down with Krampus.
That's true. Yeah, because they had a tentative plan, which was when they were out earlier, they saw a snowplow. So it was get to the snowplow, start the snowplow, and then just plow out of town. Basically, that would open the roads at the same time. But yeah, it gets to the point. Oh, it's when the elves break into the house and they take Aunt Dorothy with them. Yep. And David Koechner goes with them as well, holding on to the Jack in the Box as it's taken out. So they're like, all right, it's now or never. We got to get out of here. Grandma stays behind. She's like, I'm going to face Krampus. And that's a really cool scene too, actually. It
is. It's really well, because it's totally one of those understated moments of nothing is said. It's just, it's a really good face down, and Grandma, like that woman has just a great face. Like when it's, it's
she does, like I said, man, she's the key. Like she does a lot of good stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
So they run out the door, leave her there. And as they are, going to the snowplow one by one, everybody gets taken except for Max, who then we get his face off with Krampus, and he gives him his little Krampus ornament, which I'm sure you can buy somewhere. I have to look that up. Mm-hmm. And it leaves him basically to be the lone witness. And let's do the ending first, and then I'll get to the thing this reminded me the most of.
Sure.
This has all the classic endings.
It's got a couple of them happening, doesn't it?
So we see Krampus open up a giant maw, a conduit down to hell itself, maybe.
Sure.
Wherein he's just throwing everything, people, stuff, whatever, everything's going in there. And Max comes back at him, throws the ornament at him, and is like, screw you. I want my wish back. Like, blah, blah. It pulls out all the stops, basically. Like, I take my wish back. I'm sorry. Please, please, please. Cry, cry, cry. And I'm glad that technically nothing gives into that, because that would have been a pretty stupid ending.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So basically, Krampus just picks him up and then drops him in the pit as well. Ending 1, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Then Max wakes up. So ending 2, classic. It was a dream. Finds that his whole family is still alive. It's Christmas morning. And he starts opening presents. But then the present he gets is the Krampus ornament that he was left with that's in his dream. Mm-hmm. And the grandma kind of looks at him knowingly. And, I guess the simplest explanation is maybe that it really happened to her, and she, seeing Max headed down the same path, gave him that just to be, I don't know. We don't know. There's no answer, because slowly after that, it pans out and it actually all took place in a snow globe. Classic ending number 3.
Yeah.
And then we get the cool group shot from Krampus and his buddies. The snow globe exists in Krampus's workshop, I guess, probably, right?
I guess I kind of, the way I read this, and the way I've read this since I saw it for the first time, was that they had a normal life, and the grandmother was not taken, because she didn't actually go and do what Max did. She was left alone,
right?
And she actually stayed abandoned. Max took a different turn, and in doing so, traps all of them in a permanent just cycling of that situation. Like, they're always going to be together in that house, because
another interesting reading.
Because the one thing that does happen is after he opens the present and sees the ornament, which, by the way, the ornament plays it's the talisman throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, it's what he left the grandma when she was left alone.
Right. Yeah. So when he pulls that out, all the sounds from throughout the movie start playing, and all of the family kind of look around and recognize what happened. They all know that what happened.
That's true. They all do have a moment like, am I remembering something? Or
right. And so to me, that is the Krampus's version of putting them into kind of a hell. He dropped them into like a literal hell, and now their hell is always being stuck in a winter with family, and they can't do anything.
Okay. All right. Okay. I didn't pick up on that.
The movie is anti-family.
One ending that I think is probably the same as that I did consider was that they're all dead. like, oh, they're all, because it's also filmed really kind of brightly and softly. I was like, oh, this is the after, like, they're dead, right?
That's what I'm saying is I think
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I know. And that's, I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot to. I mentioned that to Beth while we were watching it, and she was like, oh yeah, there you go.
Plenty of endings there for you.
Sure.
Best compliment I can give this thing is the movie that kept coming to mind during this more than any other was Nightmare on Elm Street, actually.
Oh, sure.
I can't put my finger on it exactly. Both films are suburban. They deal with that in a way. There's a lot more family dynamic here than, any of the Nightmare films. It's always just parents just don't understand.
How can they?
But there are rules kind of to each universe. They're a little less specific here than they are in a Nightmare movie, although they're not necessarily spoken there. But it's also just really deformative. Like when Krampus comes down the chimney, he just busts the house wide open type thing.
Yeah.
There's it's not necessarily hands in the wall or whatnot, but nobody's falling through beds here.
No, but just and that's just something I really, really love that it's that exact kind of opposite, obviously, of Santa, where Santa would come down the chimney, right? And then he's out, he does his thing, he goes back up. I like the fact that Krampus apparently does the same thing where he becomes small, but not small enough. Right. So as he's coming down, he's just cracking all the way down until he gets to the bottom where he just breaks it open.
Yeah, it's and like I said, it's a rule. Like throughout the movie, she keeps the fire hot so he can't come down the chimney, and it's actually what precipitates the elves coming through So actually, yeah, I guess the rules are maybe even just a little bit more spoken than I realized. But yeah, I think maybe the best way to put it is it's very reminiscent of Nightmare without that Craven touch.
Sure.
It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I'm glad we did it. And between the two movies we were thinking of, I think it's probably the better show. So
hey, cool.
Krampus. 20 stars.
Out of 24.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And before we talk about what we're going to do next week.
Sure.
Because I still did watch Christmas Chronicles, the Kurt Russell Netflix movie.
Sure, and I'll catch that one this week. I will watch it.
Do you want to do a show on it?
It doesn't sound like I do.
No, I mean, we could.
I think we got. You know what? Why don't you bring one to me? Spring one on me here. What do you?
Okay,
want to
I'll
watch?
save Christmas Chronicles. In fact, I wasn't even thinking we would do Christmas movies all this month. I just thought we'd do a Christmas show type thing. I'm open to whatever you want to do.
Oh, I thought we were going Decemberween here.
Maybe if you want to keep Decemberweening.
Oh yeah,
I'm not gonna stop you.
There are just so many Christmas movies.
There's a fair amount.
Good ones too, not even bad ones. Like I thought about. I think one of the movies that I'll end up talking about, not this week, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh, so you want to you want to continue like Decemberween?
No. I'm just saying that those are movies I'm gonna watch. But there's Scrooged.
There's Gremlins. We already said Gremlins. Yeah.
Gremlins. Yeah. I love Gremlins. I'm a huge fan.
I haven't seen it in 10 or more years. Jeez, but actually no, probably more. 10 is like my default. Like that happened 10 years ago when actually now it's been like 20 because I've been saying that for 10 years.
Crazy weird, right? So, I just had that realization also.
Gremlins next week, everybody. Gremlins.
Yeah. Corey Feldman.
Decemberween continues.
It's exciting. Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman is excited. I'm getting excited thinking about him.
More Corey Feldman. All right, that's it. Podcast at bookclubformovies.com. You know where we're at on Twitter. Next week, we're going to do Gremlins. This week, it was Krampus. Let's finish up and do the rest of the show.
Okay, I only have one movie, especially if I'm saving Christmas Chronicles here. And it's one I've had in my pocket for, I think, a couple of weeks because I actually saw it in the theater while my in-laws were in town.
Sounds awful.
And because of that, I couldn't take a ton of notes on it, so I don't have a ton of notes, but I need to highly recommend it.
Okay.
Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Really?
Yeah.
I have been so, I don't know, not into that, not as excited. I haven't watched any of the trailers for it.
I don't think the trailers are doing it any favors,
because
really.
I really liked the first one.
Me too.
Really liked it.
Yes, and I thought it had a lot to live up to. And to explain how much I'm saying right then, the first Wreck-It Ralph is on my kids' list. So I've probably seen that 100 times.
Sure.
And I still like it. Like I'm never going to watch it on my own accord anymore.
No, why would you?
But I'm not sick of it, which is crazy. So
yeah,
the second one is so unique. And again, we're going no notes here. It's kind of a Toy Story 2 situation.
Oh.
And the amount that we mentioned that movie is both becoming appropriate and...
That's a tall order.
But it reminds me of it in that it is such a unique story. Like Toy Story 2 is a left field, just weird. And we won't even talk about the moment, with Jesse, but...
Oh, I'm crying thinking about it now.
Ralph Breaks the Internet. The story is actually this crazy lesson on codependency. Like I can't even name another movie where that's at the center of it. And I think it's probably a hard sell maybe for an adult movie. I mean, you could do an adult codependency movie, I guess, somehow.
Oh, I'm sure there's thousands out there.
There probably are.
To
Yes,
think of any of them. But
I just can't think of them. That's the point of failure. It's us, not
The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Rebecca De Mornay.
I was gonna say, isn't that that's like the thriller horror?
Yeah.
Okay.
Codependence there.
All right. But it's done in a way here that makes the bad guy essentially the bad side of Ralph.
Okay.
And it deals with, because the first one came off with Ralph and Vanellope being such good friends and kind of this true relationship, but not, like they're not lovers or something like that.
No, they're friends. They're just
still
friends.
A kid's movie. Yeah, maybe that's it too. You so very rarely see movies that deal with friendship in a convincing or useful way.
That's it. They're just like, that's how I always read that as them just becoming like, they start off as kind of adversarial, not really, but a little bit. They're not, they butt heads and then they kind of learn to like each other and then they're just really good friends.
But but that's always sidelined in movies. Like if you think of the friendly comic relief or something like that, like friendship, with the exception of probably I Love You Man, which I Love You movie.
It's a great movie.
You don't see that a bunch. And I think it's not only used in the perfect way. It's not a kid's movie, but it goes a lot deeper, right? I guess in a way like the first one did. The first Wreck-It Ralph is a way more traditional, story about sacrifice and that whole thing.
It's your standard learning about yourself adventure.
Yeah, I guess that was unique about it too, though. Actually, is becoming okay with your lot in life in a way that, whatever. The first one's good. Go watch the first one. It kind of does the same thing here, where it starts out with this friendship, which you do kind of see a lot, but it's never the center of the movie, and makes it the center of the movie.
Yeah,
in a way that deals with codependency, deals with and doesn't back away, much like Krampus. Plays for keeps. Like at the end of that movie, I will spoil. Do you want me to spoil it? Can I spoil it?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
It's not going to ruin the movie. Again, I feel like I say this about a lot of good movies, but this is probably what makes them good, is if they can't be spoiled. But plays for keeps. In the end, Vanellope has gone somewhere else, and they have more of a long distance relationship. Like, for lack of a better word, she leaves. She is somewhere else. She's at a different stage in life, and Ralph has learned how to deal with that. And the friendship has evolved, and what that looks like now, as opposed to don't leave, stay here for me type thing. Yeah. It
becomes a more realistic situation of, as much as you want to tell your best friend who's packing up to go that you want him to stay, that's not reality. Reality is they're getting up and they're moving, and while you guys may still continue to have a friendship, it's not going to be what it was. It's going to be different. Yeah,
to try and elevator pitch that and have somebody tell you to make a movie about it, and this thing does it. Like, highly recommended. Check it out. It's awesome. And it's fun. I laughed out loud a bunch of times. There's some good jokes in there. Some of them don't land. There are some missteps. I think where it missteps, it does so out of ambition, which I'd really like also. It's good. Yeah, totally recommend it. Did you have anything you watched this week, sir?
Okay. So I've got 3 that kind of go into one. So we're just going to talk about the overall here.
Okay.
Beth had not seen any Marvel movies outside of here and there. She'd seen Ant-Man. We saw Ragnarok. She saw Black Panther. She didn't see
That's a pretty good, if you can only see some Marvel movies, she's doing pretty good so far.
Pretty good, but she hadn't seen, and I think we saw Guardians, but she hadn't seen 2. She hadn't seen any of the Avengers movies outside of the first one. She only saw, I think, part of Iron Man 3. So she was missing a bunch of stuff. She hadn't seen Civil War.
I like how she's seen, that took you 20 minutes to go through that list, and she still, quote unquote, hasn't seen a bunch of Marvel movies. And you're right. that's where we're at.
It's nuts.
in life. Okay.
So I had been hankering to prior to the trailer for Endgame coming out, I'd been wanting to rewatch Infinity War. I wanted to see how I felt about it a second time and kind of get into it a little more.
Sure.
And so in doing so, I asked Baz, hey, do you want to watch the Avengers movies? You haven't really seen them all. And she was like, yeah, that sounds good. So we watched Age of Ultron, Civil War.
Oh, you didn't even go back to the first one?
No, she had already seen that one.
Oh,
okay.
So
gotcha. we just watched the one she hadn't seen. So okay. Age of Ultron, Civil War, and then Infinity War. And I count Civil War as an Avengers movie because it's Captain America only in name.
It's so hard. The dividing line is so thin nowadays because they're all in all of them. Yeah, it's
right. And that movie, I mean, to me, like it's focused on his kind of like an arc in his life, but whatever. In any case, so we watched all of those, and I wanted to kind of see where she was at with them and all that. And I'll tell you, Age of Ultron, she had the kind of same reaction I did both times I've seen it now, which is just kind of check out. It's not that exciting. It's actually, I think, the least well-written of all of them at this point. And it's just not very good. Like, that's the one, I think, out of all of them, the most, we both were like, why did they do that? Why would you make that choice?
Yeah, no. And anytime I talk about that, I got to qualify it.
And the downer to that was, and I forgot how quickly Thor is just like, I'm in the movie, I'm out. Like, done. Just, I can't be here.
Yeah. Hearing people talk about that movie too, it makes more sense. I guess there were a lot of fights, and Whedon didn't necessarily win any of them as much as he did compromise some of them.
That movie is in a lot of ways for me. It's jumbled and it's messy and not the right way.
You can tell. Yeah.
But then we got to Civil War, and I'll tell you what. She was, I mean, to be fair, let's start this off with the obvious thing. Chris Hemsworth with the beard and that hair, she was like, okay, I'm in.
Our wives are very similar.
And then she was disappointed in the lack of Thor, but she got over that.
Later that evening.
Because we watched Ragnarok.
Okay.
So she was like actually invested, and she was sucked into Civil War. She really liked that. And I really liked that movie. That is, I have said this in the past, and I still believe it. I think Zemo's character is so poorly put together in this movie for what he is supposed to be. He is the overarching villain he destroys Sokovia. He's the one that causes Chala's father to die, all that. But the way it's put together for him is he is like the most minute part of it, and they gave him a couple sentences that allow him to go, my family was in Sokovia, so that's why I did this. And it's like, okay, I get that the motivation there, but it's so sparsely and cheaply written to retcon it in so many ways to just say, here's why all of this happened. It happened because of me. Like, all right, there we go, done and done.
I think that was so refreshing, though. Like, coming from movies where just if the world's not going to end, then that's it. And to go to a movie that is called Civil War, not make it about the world ending, and make it, like his plan wasn't to destroy the world, it was to destroy the Avengers.
Well, and that's fine. Like, I don't mind any of that. My problem is that it's written in like basically a single line. There is you get nothing. You get the guy, Zemo is in the movie for about 10 minutes. And in that time, you're told exactly everything. Like, I'm doing it because of this. And I'm going to get Bucky to turn on and become a killer again.
It's a balancing act against the whole Accords. And
that's the thing is, like, you wanted to tell this story about what the Accords mean. And in trying to do that, you had to shoehorn the reasoning behind it when you didn't need the reasoning. Honestly, you didn't need that reasoning at that point. It was, we know something happened with Sokovia. They know it was bad. You could have, at the way they wrote Zemo, they literally could have done the same thing with here's what happened, because that's all they did. You just gave it a face. And that's just, it's a quibble. They
stumble with the politics, and it's hard to think of a movie that doesn't, but
it's a quibble. It's not the biggest deal in the world because it's so minute. It's 10 minutes of the rest of the movie being really good. She really enjoyed that. She loved the introduction to Spider-Man. It actually made her, she's like, now I want to watch Far From Home. I was like, okay, we'll check that out too.
Has she seen Homecoming?
I mean Homecoming. Yeah, that's what I meant.
I'm like, I want to watch Far From Home too, but I mean, she should start with the other one.
Stop with calling, no more home in the title.
Spider-Man 3, Home Improvement.
I don't think so, Peter. Wilson behind the thing next door.
We do kind of got a Tim Taylor, Al Borland dynamic, I think, going on here a little bit.
That's insulting to me.
I didn't say who was who.
Oh, it doesn't matter. So Civil War is fun. I really like that. I like how that movie ends up. I forgot how great of an introduction to Black Panther that was. Like, that is just the best way to introduce a character is that way. Yeah. And not only do you get that character introduced, then you also get Spider-Man. And that introduction with Spider-Man is incredibly cool. I love that they didn't shy away from showing that they've made it pretty clear, both with this and Homecoming, that he's still coming into the powers. But there comes a point where he is one of the strongest characters in the whole Marvel universe. He is one of the few characters that can kind of go toe-to-toe with the Hulk.
Well, and with Captain America, like, that's one of my favorite moments in that entire movie, is where just at the end of the fight where, Spider-Man had it handed to him, but it was after standing toe-to-toe with Captain America, and Captain America just kind of looks at him like,
where are you from? He goes, where are you from? Queens? Brooklyn, and then he runs off.
Yeah, right? Isn't that great?
But there's also what I was actually gonna go with, and I don't know how I got sidetracked here. What I was gonna go with in terms of how great that was for Spider-Man, especially it is a nerd thing, is that for all intents and purposes, the only reason Iron Man can do anything with Bucky or Captain America is because he's got the suit on. He can't do anything without the suit, right? Spider-Man is one of the strongest, and Black Panther couldn't do this either. Spider-Man actually stops Bucky from punching through. Panther can't stop that hand. Very few other characters can. Spider-Man just grabs it, and that's why there's that look of what the hell from Bucky. Yeah. Amazing moment. I also
nerd.
I also do. I think it's funny, and I mentioned this to her too, that movie skirts a line between trying to aim you in a direction about who's right and who's wrong. And I think the fascinating moment for me is, I think it always leans toward Captain America for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You kind of, I think for most people it does. There are moments
the movie
where
points you in that direction, honestly.
There are moments where Tony kind of tries to make a good argument and you go, okay, but Captain's right here. And I think the moment where it solidifies it for me, where Tony is wrong in every single respect, is when he immediately just shoots Falcon after Vision is the one that destroys War Machine because they couldn't deal with things in a different way. Like, it's Vision's fault that they're attacking and he misses, because why would Falcon just take a shot? Right.
At key moments, Tony makes emotional decisions.
Yeah. And
Cap never really loses control. He's pretty measured, but especially at the end where he's like, he killed my mom. Like, it's a great moment. Like, that movie understands the characters in a beautiful way, but
sure.
But yeah, I think the movie pretty clearly says that Cap is in the right.
I will say that for the entirety of the Marvel universe, my biggest complaint with Tony has been that they have never delved into, and they kind of like teeter around it in 3. They never delve into the fact that he was a serious alcoholic and has a drinking problem. They've never gotten into that, really.
Watch the first one again. Yeah, they have. It's not.
I don't think it's not. But it's before he's Iron Man, when he the beginning of it.
No, I mean, in the comics, yes, that occupies a large arc for Tony that they've stuck with for a long time. It's in the first movie. It's just not all of the first movie.
No. And I think, like, again, this is just a stupid thing for me. I would have liked to seen that actually as an arc throughout his films, because it is an important part of who that character is and what he becomes. It's irrelevant here because they've done what they wanted to do. It's fine. And it's good. I like him.
They got the spirit of it.
But you make the, like, that point at the end where, with the emotional decision, and it's a great moment. And I even I think that entire end sequence, especially when Tony is finally defeated, not only just by Captain beating him physically, he's defeated in every single way. The moment Captain America, he says, leave that shield, it's not yours or something, and Cap just drops it. Like there's nothing there. He's all right. Yeah. He's because it's, I think that's a great moment. It's a realization for Tony that not only does life go on, but there are other ways to have looked at things and taking a few minutes to do it. And I think he recognizes what Captain America was trying to say at that point finally.
Right.
Which then leads into Infinity War, which again, she was super glued to. Like she was into it from top to bottom, was really loved it. And we both have come to a conclusion that for everybody in the Marvel universe, for all of the people, all of the actors that they've gotten that have been cast so great, like you can't imagine I can't imagine Captain America not being Chris Evans. You know, sure. I can't imagine Tony Stark not being Robert Downey Jr.
Sure.
But out of all of them, she and I have both come to the conclusion, and this is going to blow your mind. The best cast in all of them, tops, the most enjoyable for both of us, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, that does kind of blow my mind.
And in Infinity War, even more so than in Strange, because we actually watched Doctor Strange not too long ago, and both of us love that movie. Like I kind
of want to rewatch that one lately.
Actually. I love that movie. I do. I think that is a great movie. That is a top Marvel movie. But I like the Ant-Man movies too, which, by the way, Ant-Man and Wasp, I totally get what you're saying now. I'm not going to go over it because everything you said, 100%. I really like the movie. Really fun movie. It doesn't juggle everything the right way.
Okay, all right. It is the Iron Man 2 of the Marvel universe.
I like it, but it could have been better. Yeah. Infinity War, though, again...
No. Cumberbatch. Well, let's not blow past Cumberbatch. You're right. That does kind of blow my mind. Not because I don't like Cumberbatch, but yeah, I don't know if I'd say best cast. Oh. And honestly, the only reason why I think I like him in every other way is the accent.
Oh, see, I'm good with it. And here's the thing. We both really, really liked Doctor Strange. We were like really big fan. We've watched that one multiple times.
And to be clear, I think he does a bad American accent.
No, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I just disagree. I think he's fine. But it was totally Infinity War where he has so much more power. He's so much stronger. And then on top of that, he still has the gravitas of who he is and who he was in the first movie as the Doctor before he was actually the master of the mystic arts.
Right.
And I just, everything he does in this movie, especially the moment with the Maw, when the Maw is trying to take the Infinity Stone from him, which is in his medallion that he's put a spell on. He has this moment where he just looks at the Maw and says, taking this is going to be very hard. Breaking a spell is very hard when the wizard is dead, or something like that. And it's this great, the look that he gives the Maw, and while he's upside down, is just so great. And the follow through with when you get to the end, the way he deals with the whole thing when he's looking at all the different possibilities, and then the final moment where he actually gives up and says, here's the stone. And he tells Tony right off the bat, before he has to give the stone up, he said, there's one way to win this. We know he knows this is the one way.
Yeah.
The fact that, and I've said this before, I think Doctor Strange is going to have a whole hell of a lot more to do in the next movie, as well as I think one of the biggest parts we're going to see, which we saw in the Endgame trailer, I think Ant-Man is going to have a huge part in the next movie.
Yeah, I think you nailed Ant-Man with that trailer, especially kind of showed that hand, but I don't think we get Doctor Strange back, honestly. I think that would be too easy. I mean, we will eventually. I don't think he's going to figure in that big, though.
I think he's going to be a bigger part than I think maybe we're expecting, but...
He will be a presence. I guess it's a, yeah.
Well, we'll see.
We will.
But film wise, yeah, she was invested in it. She loved it, and there were moments where she actually she totally went when Spider-Man gets the Iron Spider costume. That was one of those. She went, oh, that was nice. Cool. Yep. She totally loved that the moment Thor, and I'm sorry, by the way, speaking of, they have now screwed this up for every other character. They will never have a better entrance than Thor on the battlefield of Wakanda. That is the coolest entrance of any character.
Yeah.
And watching that whole sequence, and again, and one of the greatest parts of that is also at the end, knowing that Thor is one of the few people that actually could stop Thanos. He is one of the few people that actually is strong enough to do it, and he screwed up, which is one of the best parts of Chris Hemsworth's, that look on his face, and then seeing it in the trailer. Like, he knows, he recognizes he screwed up. And he screwed up. What's my favorite word? What's my favorite reasoning for people screwing up in movies? Because of hubris. He wanted to say something before he killed him. Which, by the way, what was the thing that Odin says in the very first Thor movie? Your big problem is hubris. So we got through Infinity War. Really liked it. I enjoy that movie a great deal. That is a really good film. It's really, really fun. And I am seriously looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. What the end game is, so to speak.
We could do a whole nother podcast on that trailer. We could do a whole nother podcast just on what you've talked about so far, because especially going from Civil War to this, where the ending of Civil War hasn't really reached, like in Infinity War, it doesn't matter who you are or are not speaking to, I think is what Banner says to Tony, right? Doesn't matter who you're not speaking to.
Thanos is coming.
And I love that they didn't get bogged down in wrapping up Civil War beefs in Infinity War, but will we ever get that? Will we ever get them dealing with those themes against each other? You know, like
I think that what we'll get is we are going to get a very brief thing like that, and it's going to happen because I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. And if you're not paying attention to any of this, I'm sorry, I don't know how you're not going to see this happen. Captain America is the way I'm telling you, this is how it's going to go down.
Well, you were right about Ant-Man, so I'll hear it.
I'm telling you. I don't know how this is going to occur, but essentially what's going to happen is Gamora is going to come back because Captain America is going to replace her by giving his soul up to take the Soul Stone back.
Okay, you did talk about this.
He's going to figure out a way to get somebody else the gauntlet. And I don't know if he's just going to break everything up again so that it can all be redone, because ultimately Evans is done. He's never coming back.
Does not want to.
They're gonna kill Captain America for this part of the Marvel universe.
Which is another thing we could talk about, is how he didn't die in Civil War. Podcast at bookclubformovies.com. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to all of this, or whatever you did listen to. Hey, it doesn't, we've got Gremlins next week. I've got Gremlins.
Okay.
What do I do?
Go to the doctor.
Go. Watch it. Let us know what you think. Or you've seen it before. Everybody's seen Gremlins. Maybe you have seen it within 20 years, unlike me. Mm-hmm. Tell us what you think, what you thought, and maybe I'll watch the sequel too.
I love Gremlins too. The new batch.
On Book Club for Movies. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.